Before I start this story, I need you to imagine something. Imagine waking up every day believing you're loved, safe, and chosen, only to discover your husband wasn't just cheating. He was living an entire second life, with another woman and a child. Tonight's story is a slow-burn mystery that explodes into one of the coldest revenge endings you'll ever hear. Before we begin, please like this video, share it with someone who loves intense real-life stories, and subscribe to The Spoken Pen, where every week we bring you stories that keep you on the edge of your seat. Now let me take you inside a marriage built on lies, and show you how one woman burned her husband's entire empire to the ground. Welcome back to The Spoken Pen, your home for dark, emotional, and mind-twisting real-life stories. Today's story exposes a husband's secret life, a hidden house, and a wife who pieces together a betrayal deeper than anyone could imagine. Let's begin. The soft hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in my quiet suburban kitchen that Monday morning. It was the kind of silence that should have felt peaceful after a long weekend, but instead it pressed on me heavy, almost accusatory. I set my coffee mug on the granite countertop and rubbed my temples, trying to shake off a dull ache that had planted itself behind my eyes days ago. Something in our house, something in my marriage, had felt off lately, and no matter how much I tried to dismiss it as stress, aging, hormones, or imagination, the feeling kept returning sharper each time. My husband, Michael, had left for work before sunrise, like he always did. A tall, broad-shouldered man with neatly trimmed brown hair and a wardrobe full of expensive suits. He had always looked like he belonged in corporate boardrooms, not beside me in our small-town Texas kitchen. Even after 22 years of marriage, there were mornings when he felt like a stranger whose life merely brushed against mine in passing. But lately, he didn't just feel distant. He felt absent. His schedule had changed subtly at first. Late meetings, he'd say, urgent calls, unexpected business dinners, new clients. Then came the nights he wouldn't return home until after midnight. On 3 different evenings over the last month, he'd claimed he was flying out of town for business, but hadn't bothered showing me a ticket, itinerary, or even a luggage tag. Of course, I asked questions softly, carefully, the way wives are taught to, and he always answered calmly, too calmly, smiling like a man who couldn't possibly be suspected of anything. Maybe that should have been my first clue. But the real shift came last Thursday. That night, Michael came home smelling faintly of a perfume I didn't own. Warm vanilla with a sharp citrus undertone. When I lifted an eyebrow, he laughed lightly and brushed it off. The receptionist hugged me goodbye. "She's leaving the firm," he explained as he loosened his tie. "You know how emotional people get." Except that wasn't how Michael operated. He avoided unnecessary physical contact with nearly everyone. He wasn't the type to be hugged by coworkers, especially younger women. The scent lingered long after he showered, clinging to the very air in our bedroom. It was now Monday, 3 days later, and the unease hadn't left my chest. If anything, it had grown. My phone buzzed with a notification dragging me out of my thoughts. "Your package has been delivered." Finally, I stood from the table and walked toward the front door, my heart thudding with nervous determination. For the past week, I had debated whether I should trust my instincts, even considered speaking to my sister, but I didn't want to hear the pity or the warnings. Instead, I made my decision in silence. I had ordered a smart home security camera, a small, sleek device designed to blend into any corner. It wasn't to spy on Michael, not exactly. At least that's what I tried to tell myself. It was simply insurance. I opened the package right there in the foyer. The camera was small, matte black, almost unnoticeable. Perfect. I turned it over in my hands, feeling a churn in my stomach. I hated that it had come to this. Hated that I was sneaking around my own home like a suspicious neighbor instead of a wife. But I couldn't live in uncertainty anymore. I needed answers. Whether they broke me or freed me. I installed the device high in the corner of the kitchen, angled toward the living room and back hallway, an area Michael passed through constantly. The camera synced to my phone within minutes, its feed crisp and clear. I tested the audio. Perfect. The motion alerts. Perfect. The cloud storage. Perfect. A small part of me hoped it would show nothing, that I would end up feeling guilty for doubting him at all. But a larger part, a growing, terrified, furious part, knew that wasn't how this story would unfold. I stared at the live feed a moment longer, then turned away. It was time to go to work. I own a small home decor shop downtown. Nothing big, nothing glamorous, but it's mine. Something I had built from the ground up long before Michael's firm started paying him six figures. I didn't need his money then, and I didn't need it now. Maybe that was why the distance stung even more. I had expected partnership in marriage, not secrecy. The shop was slow that morning, which matched my mood. I spent most of the time rearranging scented candles and updating inventory on the computer. But I kept checking my phone, compulsively, anxiously. Every hour on the hour. No motion alerts. Nothing suspicious. Nothing at all. By noon I felt foolish. By 3 I felt paranoid. By 5 I was furious with myself. Then at 5:27 p.m., as I packed a box of fall-themed mugs, my phone buzzed twice. Motion detected, kitchen camera. My fingers froze. Michael wasn't supposed to be home yet. He always arrived after 6. I swallowed hard and opened the app. The screen loaded, slowly, agonizingly, until the live feed sharpened before me. Michael walked into the kitchen. Not hurried, not stressed, smiling. He set down his briefcase, loosened his tie, and walked straight to the fridge for a drink. Nothing unusual on the surface, except for his expression. He looked lighter than he'd been in weeks. Almost giddy. He checked his phone, typing something quickly, and chuckled softly. A chuckle. Michael never chuckled. My stomach tightened. Moments later, another motion alert appeared. Motion detected, back hallway. Another subject detected. Another subject? My blood turned to ice. I tapped the screen. A figure entered the frame behind him. A woman. Young, much younger than me. Early 20s, maybe 25 at most. Long dark hair, slim build, wearing a fitted cream-colored blouse and high-waisted jeans. She carried herself with the casual confidence of someone who belonged there. My throat closed. No, this couldn't be happening. She couldn't be in my house. Our house. But she was. She walked up behind Michael, slid her arms around his waist, and nuzzled her face into the back of his shoulder like she'd done it 1,000 times. Michael didn't flinch. He didn't push her away. Instead, he turned around, cupped her face with a hand that used to touch me, and kissed her, slowly, deeply, like a man who had been starving. Something shattered inside my chest, something sharp and irreversible. It cut deep, leaving a jagged wound I knew would never heal cleanly. My vision blurred, but I couldn't stop watching. Couldn't tear my gaze away from the betrayal unfolding in high resolution. The woman broke the kiss and walked toward my pantry, laughing softly as she opened the door and grabbed one of my mugs, my ceramic sunflower mug I'd had since college. She poured herself coffee from the pot Michael had brewed earlier that morning. In my kitchen, using my things. Michael watched her like she was his entire world. Then he said something that made every hair on my arm stand straight up. Welcome home. 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 She didn't hesitate. She walked around the kitchen island, sat on the bar stool I always used, and crossed her legs. Comfortable. Familiar. Rooted. Michael gestured toward the fridge. She nodded. He opened it and pulled out a bowl of fresh-cut fruit I had prepared the night before. Fruit I assumed he had taken to work. But no. He had saved it for her. I was shaking now, trembling so violently I had to set down the mug before it slipped from my hands. My knees weakened and I braced myself against the display table in my shop. My husband had brought another woman, this young, smiling stranger, into our home. While I was at work. Like she belonged there. Like she lived there. I forced myself to breathe, to keep watching. Because I needed to know. Every detail. Every lie. Michael slipped off his suit jacket and draped it casually on the chair. The woman leaned toward him, tracing the collar of his shirt with a playful finger. He caught her hand and kissed it. Then she giggled, a bright, youthful sound, and whispered something I couldn't hear over the camera. Michael's response was clear. Trust me. She'll never know. I felt sick. I clutched the edge of the table so hard my fingertips went numb. The store around me, candles, shelves, soft music, felt like a different universe. One where my life was normal, stable, safe. But the screen in my hand told a different story. One that would tear everything apart. At that moment, a customer entered the shop. I wiped my eyes quickly and forced a smile, my voice steady only by habit. But my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. After she left, I locked the door early, hung the "Be back tomorrow" sign, and sat behind the counter staring at my phone. The woman stayed in my kitchen almost a full hour. She poured wine, my favorite bottle. She ate leftovers I had saved for dinner. She moved around the space with practiced familiarity. At one point, she even walked to the hallway and disappeared toward the guest room. The guest room. My breath froze. I had noticed something odd there over the past month. A scent I couldn't place. The curtains slightly askew. A blanket folded differently than I remembered. Had she been here before? How long had this been going on? I watched until Michael finally guided her out through the back door at 6:45 p.m. She kissed him again before leaving. He lingered by the door after she was gone, smiling to himself like he was a man in love. My husband had brought another woman, this young, smiling stranger, into our home. While I was at work. Like she belonged there. Like she lived there. I forced myself to breathe, to keep watching. Because I needed to know. Every detail. Every lie. Michael slipped off his suit jacket and draped it casually on the chair. The woman leaned toward him, tracing the collar of his shirt with a playful finger. He caught her hand and kissed it. Then she giggled, a bright, youthful sound, and whispered something I couldn't hear over the camera. Michael's response was clear. Trust me. She'll never know. I felt sick. I clutched the edge of the table so hard my fingertips went numb. The store around me, candles, shelves, soft music, felt like a different universe. One where my life was normal, stable, safe. But the screen in my hand told a different story. One that would tear everything apart. At that moment, a customer entered the shop. I wiped my eyes quickly and forced a smile, my voice steady only by habit. But my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. After she left, I locked the door early, hung the "Be back tomorrow" sign, and sat behind the counter staring at my phone. The woman stayed in my kitchen almost a full hour. She poured wine, my favorite bottle. She ate leftovers I had saved for dinner. She moved around the space with practiced familiarity. At one point, she even walked to the hallway and disappeared toward the guest room. The guest room. My breath froze. I had noticed something odd there over the past month. A scent I couldn't place. The curtains slightly askew. A blanket folded differently than I remembered. Had she been here before? How long had this been going on? I watched until Michael finally guided her out through the back door at 6:45 p.m. She kissed him again before leaving. He lingered by the door after she was gone, smiling to himself like he was a man in love. The sun had already dipped beneath the horizon when I finally mustered enough strength to drive home. I don't remember the roads, the lights, or the cars beside me. I only remember the trembling in my hands and a pressure in my chest so tight, it felt like a fist closing around my heart. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the house looked like a stranger, quiet, shadowed, and cold. I turned off the engine and sat motionless, staring at the front door as if it were the entrance to someone else's life. Inside, everything was exactly the same as I left it. The kitchen counter spotless. The throw pillows arranged neatly on the living room couch. The soft aroma of vanilla candles lingering in the air. But I could still feel her there. Her presence clung to the room like a stain, subtle but impossible to ignore. The bar stool she sat on. The mug she touched. The counter she leaned against while she kissed my husband. I waited for Michael to come home for dinner that night, but he never did. Instead, around 9:14 p.m. I got a text. Michael. Working late with clients. Don't wait up. He even added a heart emoji. I almost laughed. A sharp, bitter sound that came from somewhere deep inside me. Because I now knew exactly where he was. And it wasn't with clients. Sleep didn't come easily. My mind kept replaying the scene over and over. The young woman's laugh, the way she pressed herself against Michael, the smug confidence in her eyes as she moved around my kitchen. By morning, I had almost convinced myself that nothing worse could possibly appear on the camera feed. I was wrong. When I walked into the kitchen for coffee, another motion alert pinged. Video backup complete. 6:03 p.m. Previous day. New clip available. Confused, I tapped on it. It wasn't from the main feed. It was from the secondary angle the device recorded automatically, capturing a reflective panel on our stainless steel refrigerator. A mirror-like surface. The one angle I had ignored last night. I pressed play, and everything I thought I knew shattered. Because the reflection didn't just show Michael and the young woman kissing. It showed a child's backpack hung over her shoulder when she walked in. A small pink Disney princess backpack. My blood iced over. She didn't come alone. The footage continued, the reflection catching details I had missed. When the woman entered, she set the backpack on the dining chair and took something out. A small stuffed rabbit. Then, faint but unmistakable, a little voice called, "Mommy." I froze. A child's voice. I scrambled to replay the moment, turning my phone volume up. The audio was faint on the kitchen microphone, but the reflection clearly showed the young woman turning toward the hallway and mouthing, "It's okay, baby. Stay there." My heart dropped. Michael stepped out of the frame for a moment, and when he returned he was carrying a toddler, maybe 3, maybe 4 years old. A little girl with dark brown curls and sleepy eyes, resting her head on his shoulder like she'd done it 100 times. He kissed the top of her head. Then, "God help me," he whispered. "There's my girl. My girl." My stomach lurched. I pressed my hand over my mouth as tears blurred the screen. That wasn't affection you showed a stranger's child. That wasn't polite. That wasn't distant. That was a father. A man comfortable, familiar, intimate. And the little girl looked at him with recognition, with trust, with love. My chest tightened, breath hitching painfully. Michael hadn't just been cheating. He hadn't just brought another woman into our home. He had brought a child who acted like she knew him, a child he lifted effortlessly, naturally, a child he didn't hide, because he didn't need to hide her, because he expected I'd never discover the truth. I paused the video and leaned over the kitchen sink, gripping the edge until my knuckles turned white. My heart felt as though someone had wrapped icy fingers around it and squeezed. A child. Michael had a child with this woman. A second life. A second home. A second family. I pressed play again, forcing myself to watch even as tears fell freely. Michael carried the little girl into the living room, the reflection still catching bits of movement. The woman joined them, her hand on Michael's back, her face soft and tender. The toddler stretched her arms toward her mother. Michael kissed both of them, the woman on the forehead, the child on the cheek. A domestic, intimate scene. In my home. In my kitchen. On my floors. Surrounded by my belongings. I covered my mouth as a sob choked out of me. This wasn't just betrayal. This was an entire double life hidden under my roof. And as I watched the footage, one horrifying truth began to crystallize. The little girl wasn't some unexpected surprise. She wasn't new. She wasn't unfamiliar to him. Michael had known her for a long time. Months. Maybe years. Because the little girl rested her head on his shoulder with the ease of a child who knew safety, who knew familiarity, who knew love. A kind of love Michael hadn't shown me in years. My shock eventually numbed into something colder, something sharper. Purpose. If Michael had a second family, then he had secrets buried everywhere. The kind of secrets men took risks for. The kind that burned marriages, ruined lives, destroyed futures. And now he had made a mistake. A big one. Because I had something he didn't know about. A camera feed. Video proof. And a new unstoppable determination to uncover every single lie he had ever told me. I wasn't just a betrayed wife anymore. I was an investigator. When Michael finally walked through the front door that evening, I was sitting at the dining table, pretending to read a magazine. My heart hammered, but my face stayed cool, expressionless. He kissed my cheek as if nothing were wrong, as if he wasn't betraying me, as if he hadn't kissed another woman in this very kitchen less than 24 hours ago. "Long day?" he asked, loosening his tie. I looked up with a soft smile that felt like poison on my lips. "Very." He didn't notice the tension in my jaw or the crack in my voice. Just nodded and walked to the fridge for iced tea. The same fridge reflecting his lies. He poured a glass, then paused. "What's this?" he asked, pointing to the tiny camera in the corner. My stomach dipped. But I stayed steady. "I got it for security," I said calmly. "I've been nervous being home alone when you work late." He glanced at it again, a little too long, before shrugging. "Probably a good idea. Neighborhood's been crazy lately." Liar. He had no idea the camera recorded his double life. No idea I knew about the girlfriend, the child, the visits. He had no idea his entire world was about to collapse. I watched him from the corner of my eye as he sat across from me. Relaxed, oblivious, content. My husband. My partner. My betrayer. I forced myself to breathe steadily. Because now wasn't the time for confrontation. Not yet. Not until I knew everything. Not until his lies were fully exposed. Not until I understood who the woman was, and what role the child played in his secret life. That night, after Michael fell asleep, I quietly slipped into the office and opened his laptop, something I hadn't done in years. At first glance, everything looked normal. Emails, company spreadsheets, calendar entries. But then I found a folder hidden behind 4 layers of subfolders, labeled innocently, Q2 tax documents. My pulse spiked. Clicked it open. Inside weren't tax files. There were photos. Dozens of them. Michael at a park, pushing the toddler on a swing. Michael holding her while she fed ducks. Michael lifting her in the air as she giggled. Michael sitting beside the young woman on a picnic blanket. her head on his shoulder. Image after image of a life I never knew existed. Dates in the corner. From 2 years ago. 2 years. My ears rang. My vision blurred. The little girl wasn't new. She wasn't recent. He had been living a second life for at least 2 years. He had built another family behind my back. A young woman. Their daughter. A hidden home. A reality he invested time, money, and affection into. A reality more vibrant than the hollow marriage he maintained with me. But the next photo, the very last one in the folder, froze me completely. It was taken inside a bedroom I had never seen before. The woman was leaning against Michael, smiling. The toddler sat in his lap. And in Michael's hand, a set of keys, attached to a keychain engraved with an address. A home. Their home. A location. A place where his other life thrived. The room spun. I grabbed a pen and wrote down the address with shaking hands, my breath coming fast and shallow. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as one unbearable truth finally crashed over me. Michael didn't just have another woman. He didn't just have a child. He didn't just have a second life. He had a second house. A house built on lies. A house I would find. A house I would walk into. A house where revenge, slow, deliberate, unstoppable, would begin. The morning after I found the secret photos, I woke up feeling hollow, as if a part of me had detached during the night and drifted somewhere far away. Michael left early again, his footsteps soft but familiar, his aftershave clinging to the hallway like a ghost of the man I thought I married. The second the front door closed, I sat up in bed, grabbed my phone, and stared at the address I had written down the night before. 1114 Meadowcrest Lane. A place that had never slipped from his lips in 22 years of marriage. I typed it into my Maps app with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. It was only 27 minutes away. 27 minutes. My husband's other life, this child, this young woman, this entire parallel world, was not in another state or city. It wasn't tucked away in some distant hideaway. It was practically in our backyard. I didn't bother changing out of my hoodie and jeans. I grabbed my keys, slipped into my car, and drove. During the drive, my mind replayed everything I had seen. Her youthful face. Her easy confidence. The way she touched Michael like she knew every inch of him. The toddler, his daughter, whose small fingers curled around his shirt with trust. At one intersection, I had to pull over and breathe through the rising panic. It felt like drowning inside my own chest. I kept asking myself, how? How did he juggle 2 lives so seamlessly? How did he walk into my house day after kissing another woman? How long had he been lying so effortlessly? And then the darker question, why wasn't I enough? The light turned green and I forced myself back onto the road, knowing the answer wouldn't heal anything. It wouldn't stop the betrayal that had already sunk its claws into my spine. But finding the truth, all of it, was now my purpose. 27 minutes later, I turned onto Meadowcrest Lane. The houses here were newer than ours, sleek modern facades, pristine lawns, expensive SUVs parked in driveways. A neighborhood where young families started fresh, where new marriages blossomed, where secrets like Michael's could easily hide. My hands were sweating when I pulled up near the address. I didn't park directly in front of the house, just close enough to see. And when I did, my blood ran cold. The house was beautiful. Cream siding, black shutters, large bay windows, a porch with white railings and 2 rocking chairs. A house built for a young couple. A house built for a child. A house that had nothing to do with me, my life, or the man I thought I knew. I watched it for several minutes. No movement. No car in the driveway. No sign of anyone home. But the feeling. God, the feeling of seeing it with my own eyes, something in me snapped. For 22 years, Michael told me we couldn't afford a bigger house. For 22 years, he told me we needed to be careful with money. For 22 years, he told me he traveled for work because overtime was essential. For 22 years, he told me he was stressed, tired, overworked. He lied, because he was funding this. A secret home for his secret family. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I wiped my eyes and forced myself to focus. I needed answers, not just suspicions, not just footage, but concrete proof. I started the car again and drove around the block, slowly, studying the surrounding streets, noting the cars, the faces of nearby neighbors. I memorized the details of the house, the number on the porch, the layout of the street. Then I saw something I wasn't prepared for. A woman. Not the young woman I'd seen on camera. Someone else. She stepped out of a silver minivan across the street carrying 2 grocery bags. Late 50s. Dark hair pinned up. Wearing scrubs from the local medical center. She glanced toward Michael's house with a look that wasn't casual curiosity. It was recognition. Familiarity. She knew the people who lived there. I pulled over and waited for her to reach her door. Then, after a deep breath, I got out of my car and walked toward her. "Excuse me," I said softly. She stopped and looked me over. "Yes? Are you lost?" I forced a trembling smile. "Actually, no. I was hoping you could help me. I'm looking for a friend who recently moved to Meadowcrest Lane. Her name is, Emily." The woman didn't hesitate. "Oh, Emily. Yes, she lives just across the street." She nodded toward the house. "That one? The beautiful blonde girl with the little one? They moved in about a year ago." Blonde? A cold shock ran through me. The woman in the video had dark hair. This Emily wasn't her. "Is she home?" I asked casually. The neighbor shook her head. "Not yet. She usually gets back around 2 or 3. She works mornings at." I didn't hear the rest, because the implications hit me like a punch. There were 2 women connected to the house. A young dark-haired woman from the camera, and another woman, Emily, a blonde who lived here full-time. My throat closed. "So she lives here alone?" I asked, trying to sound neutral. The neighbor shook her head. "Oh no. Her boyfriend visits all the time. Tall fellow, business type, brown hair. Very charming. You can't miss him." I felt dizzy. Michael didn't just have a girlfriend. He had a main girlfriend, and a side girlfriend, and a daughter, and a home separate from mine, and a neighborhood where the neighbors knew him, recognized him, liked him. He had built an entire life I had never been meant to discover. The neighbor continued casually, unaware of the hurricane inside me. "He's here almost every week. Sometimes with flowers, sometimes with groceries. He's very sweet with the little girl. Their whole family is adorable." Family. The word hit me like a stone. Their family. Not mine. Not ours. The neighbor leaned in slightly. "Do you want me to tell her you stopped by?" I swallowed back the rising emotion and forced a small smile. "No, thank you. I'll catch her another time." I hurried back to my car before the neighbor could see the tears forming in my eyes. I drove straight home and locked myself in the bathroom. The room spun. I sat on the cold tile and let myself break. Not quietly. Not gently, but wholly, violently. My sobs echoed off the walls like a wounded animal. My body shook so hard I could barely breathe. I pressed my palms over my face and screamed into them, the kind of scream that only comes from a soul that's been split open. 2 women. A child. A house. A life he nurtured and fed and cherished, while mine was slowly starved. I slid down to the floor, pressed my forehead to my knees, and cried until I had nothing left. But when the tears finally subsided, something shifted inside me. Something cold, steady, dangerous. A new voice rose beneath the heartbreak. A voice that whispered, "He doesn't get to walk away from this." My breathing slowed. My hands steadied. A plan, dark, sharp, deliberate, began forming in my mind. If Michael could build a second life in secret, then I could dismantle both lives in the light. Brick by brick, lie by lie, story by story, until everything he cherished came crashing down. I spent the next 3 days gathering information. Not emotional, not reactive, strategic. I watched the camera feed religiously. I logged dates, times, faces, movements. I followed the young dark-haired woman on 2 different afternoons, not close enough to be noticed, but close enough to learn her routines. She worked at a nearby boutique. She visited a local cafe every morning. She texted constantly. She didn't drive. Michael dropped her off. The blonde woman, Emily, followed a different pattern. Morning shifts at a dental office. Pickup time at a preschool for the little girl. Grocery runs. Evening walks on Meadowcrest Lane. 2 women. 1 child. 1 man tying the strings between them. My husband. My betrayer. My target. Every night Michael walked into our bedroom, kissed my forehead, and pretended to be exhausted from work. I wanted to claw his lies off his face. But I stayed quiet, because the time wasn't right. Not yet. I needed one more thing. Definitive, undeniable proof. And I got it. On Friday afternoon, I drove back to Meadowcrest Lane and parked a few houses down. I had a pair of binoculars buried under an old blanket in the back seat, something I never thought I'd use. At exactly 4:12 p.m., a car pulled into the driveway of Michael's secret house. Not his company car. Not his usual sedan. A third car. One I had never seen before. Michael stepped out. He wasn't in his work suit. He was in jeans. A fitted gray t-shirt. Casual. Comfortable. Familiar. He walked to the passenger side and opened the door. The blonde woman, Emily, stepped out. Young. Beautiful. Soft curls framing her face. Her smile glowing. She held the toddler in her arms. And the little girl reached for Michael. Not hesitant. Not shy. Reaching for her father. They walked inside together. Like a family. My breath left my lungs. This was real. This was proof. This was the final nail in the coffin of the life I thought I had. I recorded everything. Then I put the binoculars down. And something inside me locked into place. I wasn't just a betrayed wife anymore. I wasn't broken. I wasn't powerless. I was ready. Ready for revenge so calculated, so devastating, so absolute, that Michael would regret ever thinking he could build another life behind my back. For 3 nights I barely slept. I watched the camera footage, cataloged every detail, saved every clip, and printed every lie. My dining table slowly transformed into a war map. Timestamps, screenshots, notes, addresses, receipts. Every piece of evidence sat there like ammunition. And on the 4th night, I finally had enough. Michael walked into our kitchen around 8:40 p.m., loosening his tie, humming softly, almost cheerfully. He'd been with them today. I knew it from the lightness in his shoulders, the spring in his step. He always came back to me more alive after he spent time with them. It made me sick. He kissed my cheek. "Hey, sweetheart. Sweetheart." I stared at him. This tall, brown-haired man in his 50s who looked so ordinary, so normal, so professional, so practiced. And all I could think was, "You have no idea what's coming." "I'm heading to bed early," he said, already halfway down the hall. "Long day." "Sure." I watched him disappear into the bedroom. Then I stood up. grabbed my folder full of evidence and placed it in my purse. Tonight was the night. Michael snored quietly as I slipped out the front door. The air outside was cold enough to bite, the kind of cold that wakes your mind where your heart feels numb. I drove straight to Meadowcrest Lane. This time I didn't park down the street. I parked directly in their driveway. Bold, obvious, unmistakable. If neighbors watched, good. If cameras caught me, even better. Tonight wasn't about hiding. It was about unveiling. Lights glowed softly through the living room window. I stepped out of the car, walked to the front door, and rang the bell. The sound echoed inside. My heartbeat thudded hard. Footsteps approached. The door opened, and there she stood. Emily, the blonde woman. Young, pretty, soft green eyes. Barefoot in leggings and an oversized sweater, holding a sippy cup in one hand. She blinked in confusion. Can I help you? My voice was calm, shockingly calm. Yes, I'm here to talk to you. It's important. She frowned slightly. Do I know you? No, I said. But you know my husband. The words froze her. Color drained from her face. Your husband? Yes. I tilted my head. Tall, brown hair, businessman. He visits you almost every week. Her mouth parted. She stepped back like the floor had shifted beneath her. I don't understand. Michael, I clarified softly. His name is Michael. She visibly flinched. Her eyes darted around nervously, like prey searching for escape. Please, she whispered, opening the door wider. Come in. Her house smelled like vanilla and baby powder. A soft pink toy lay on the rug. A small pair of sneakers sat by the door. It looked like a loving home, warm, bright, full of care. The kind of home Michael never created with me. This isn't happening, Emily whispered, pressing a shaking hand to her forehead. He told me he wasn't married. Of course he did. I reached into my purse and placed a stack of photos on the coffee table. Her breath hitched as she saw the images. Michael holding the child. Michael kissing her forehead. Michael embracing the other woman, the dark-haired one, from the kitchen footage. Michael unlocking the front door. Michael walking through the neighborhood smiling, waving to neighbors. Who is she? Emily whispered, tapping the picture of the dark-haired girl. Your replacement, I replied flatly. Your competition. Your co-conspirator, whether you knew or not. Emily sank onto the couch, tears filling her eyes. I swear I didn't know. I thought he lived alone. I thought he was divorced years ago. I studied her face. The trembling, the shock, the devastation. This wasn't an act. She truly had no idea. But she wasn't innocent either. Do you have a daughter with him? I asked quietly. Her eyes shot up wide and terrified. Yes. And how old is she? Almost 4. 4. The timeline fit perfectly. Michael had been living this lie for years, almost half the length of our marriage's last decade. I leaned forward. Where is she now? In her room. Asleep. Good. She didn't need to witness the destruction of her father's empire. Emily wiped her eyes. What do we do? And that was the moment my revenge sharpened into something surgical. Precise. Devastating. I opened my purse again and pulled out 3 manila envelopes. One for Emily. One for the dark-haired girlfriend. One for Michael's company board. Emily stared at them like they were explosives. Inside is the truth, I said softly. Every photo, every timestamp, every video, every message. I've already backed it all up on 3 clouds, 2 hard drives, and a flash drive in a safety deposit box. Her eyes widened. Good. Let her feel the gravity. I continued, are going to make sure his entire double life collapses in a single day. Emily swallowed hard. And the other woman? She gets her envelope tomorrow. I smiled coldly. She deserves to know the man who promised her a future is already living too. Emily nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. What about Michael? She whispered. Oh, I said, standing, he gets something special. I left Emily's house at 11:52 p.m., and I didn't go home. I drove straight to Michael's office building, a tall glass tower that gleamed even at night. His company had a 24/7 mailroom drop-off for overnight deliveries. Perfect. I walked inside, smiling politely at the sleepy guard. He barely looked up. I slid the thick envelope, labeled urgent, for board review only, into the metal drop slot. Inside was everything that proved Michael had lied. Michael had misused company funds. Michael had falsified travel logs. Michael had claimed conference trips while living in another home. Michael had spent thousands on the blonde girlfriend, the dark-haired girlfriend, and the child. All traceable, all documented, all damning. By morning, the board would see everything. His job, his identity, his precious reputation, gone. I got home at exactly 1:06 a.m. Michael wasn't sleeping. He was sitting on the couch, waiting. His foot tapped anxiously when I walked in. Where were you? He demanded. I woke up and you were gone. I called you 5 times. I locked the door behind me. Then I walked into the living room, took a deep breath, and placed the final envelope on the coffee table, addressed to him. I was with the woman you built a second home with, I said calmly. His face drained completely. Not a flicker of color left. What? I met your girlfriend, I said softly. The blonde one with your daughter. His knees buckled. And tomorrow, I continued, I'll meet the dark-haired one too. He stumbled back. No, listen, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. He froze. I know about the house, I said. I know about the child. I know about the photos. I know about your second life. I know about your third life. I know everything. He tried to speak. I raised my hand. And tomorrow morning, I said, voice like steel, your company will know too. His eyes widened with horror. You told them. I sent them the evidence. His jaw dropped open. And what about the women? He croaked. Oh, they're getting their envelopes first thing in the morning. You'll be quite busy explaining to both of them. Michael collapsed into the chair, shaking. You're ruining my life. No, I said softly, leaning forward. You ruined mine. I'm just returning the favor. He buried his face in his hands. And one more thing, I added, standing tall and calm. I want a divorce. Immediately. His head snapped up. You can't. I can, I said. And I already contacted an attorney. He looked like he was unraveling, sweating, trembling, breaking. And I'll be keeping the house, I added. And half of everything you own. He opened his mouth but no sound came out. Oh, and Michael? He looked up at me, eyes red, desperate. You will take care of your daughter. Legally. Publicly. Financially. And consistently. No more hiding her. No more lying. No more pretending. He swallowed hard. You will do right by that child, I said, because she didn't ask to be born into your lies. He blinked, stunned. I turned and walked to the bedroom. You'll sleep in the guest room tonight. He didn't argue. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. He just sat there watching his world collapse piece by piece. The next 3 days unfolded exactly as planned. Day 1. Both women received their envelopes. The blonde cried. The dark-haired one screamed. Both kicked him out. Day 2. The company placed him under investigation, froze his accounts, and suspended him pending review. Day 3. I filed for divorce publicly, using every piece of evidence. His world burned. His lies crumbled. His women left him. His child, innocent and beautiful, gained stability and truth. And me? For the first time in 22 years, I could breathe. Michael came by once to beg for forgiveness. I didn't open the door. Not then. Not ever. The house was mine. The shop was thriving. My hair was longer. My smile was real again. And every morning, I woke up with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Michael moved into a small apartment near Meadowcrest Lane. He sees his daughter regularly. He pays support. He works at a much smaller firm now. But he knows better than to contact me. He knows he lost everything. And he knows exactly why. My revenge wasn't violent. It wasn't impulsive. It wasn't loud. It was surgical, precise, devastating, and perfectly justified. Because some men think they can live two lives. Some think they can juggle lies forever. Some think their wives will never see what hides behind the curtain. But they forget one thing. A betrayed woman doesn't just burn bridges. She burns empires. If this story had you hooked, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Spoken Pen for more intense and unforgettable stories. Your support keeps our channel growing and helps more people discover these powerful narratives. Thank you for listening. See you in the next story.